Well, Coasters, this month, Allan Laurie from Laurie Forestry has agreed to give us an update on what's happening in the logging sector once again. Allan, thanks very much for joining us.
Fantastic, Bruce, and thanks for including me in your broadcast. It's really great to touch base with your listeners and update them on the market, which is obviously an important part of the industry on the coast.
Now, Allan, you're one of the longest-serving registered forestry consultants in New Zealand, and I know that you started your career with the Forest Service in 1973. That's a wee while ago.
I did on the 21st of January 1973. I remember it well. And, at Golden Downs and Nelson, yes.
Well, that's where all the good guys started. Hey, now you're also currently the industry representative on the operational advisory group for the New Zealand Forest Industry Safety Council. It's a mouthful, that one, isn't it? Allan, what does that do?
The Safety Council is the body that was set up back in 2013. We had some horror years in our industry around fatalities, and it really gave us a big shake-up. And so out of that, there became a commissioned report which indicated that there had to be broader industry support for safety. And so the New Zealand Forest Industry Safety Council was formed, headed by Fiona Ewing as the National Safety Director. And she appointed myself along with 11 other people on the operational advisory group. So we're the ones that, if you like, the forest practitioners that advise the board on policy. And if your listeners would like to go on to the Safetree website, www.safetree.co.nz, that's where you'll find the results of the work that the operational advisory group do in part. And that's to look at the material you do see online. That's a broader support mechanism for all industry players and many, right across the contractor, forest owner, forest company sectors. And it's a very inclusive website and very, very, I think it's most comprehensive and one of the more comprehensive that I've seen available to any primary industry.
Well, look, Allan, Laurie Forestry remains a major force in harvesting and the marketing of pine forests on our west coast, from Karamea to Haast. Now, you've been writing the monthly report now for 10 years, haven't you?
Yes, this month was the 10th year anniversary, and I'm not sure if that's any sort of a milestone, but it's great to keep people informed. And as I go around and I talk to clients, I used to come across a great deal of misinformation about what was really happening, and people were always asking. So I said, right, the best thing to do is, firstly, we made a decision about 14 years ago to enter the market directly. And so we trade directly with customers in China. We use agents to do that. And up until COVID, I used to visit quite regularly. So the first thing there, the strategy was to take people as close as possible to the end user, whether that was in New Zealand or in China. And we have a very, very fundamental focus on our domestic sawmills, by the way. And then, of course, to back that up with our market reports, which then just keeps everybody across the sector informed of what's happening out there. And even have many forestry companies on our mailing list, so they appreciate being kept informed as well.
Allan, I'm not surprised. Now, July 2020, going back 10 years, what's the price like today compared with, say, 10 years ago?
Prices are actually a little bit better. If you take that as a net to forest grower basis, certainly much better. And yes, exports in a bit of a dip at the moment, but even so, prices are still $80, $81, I think, for A grade back in July 2010, and now in the low 100s, 105, 106 mark. But domestic prices are the big winner for our forest owners, and those prices have quietly been building away with no great fluctuation. They've just been quietly building over those 10 years, and a forest owner who might have been getting $80 to $90 a tonne back in 2010 is now 120. And many of the production costs haven't changed, so we've used technology to ensure our contractors remain viable, but also to improve productivity. And so we've got 100 people around our business doing the same work that maybe 150 people used to do, and that's simply a consequence of mechanisation and the drive to keep our costs under control.
Allan, how are you finding obviously the Chinese sawmills are important to getting rid of that low-grade timber. How are they going?
They're a very important part of the business, and as I've said in this monthly report, Bruce, we need to sell the whole tree, and typically your domestic markets will buy that better portion of the tree, the higher grades. You've got some wonderful sawmills on the west coast buying S-grade logs, pruned logs, and that's their focus. They want to make house framing, and they want to make panels, and they want to make finishing timbers. The Chinese want to use it for construction, so they take that poor end of the tree and they pay very, very good money. In fact, usually quite similar to what a domestic sawmill will pay for the very good logs. And so they're a very important part of our business, and great to see things just lifting in China a little bit at the moment, and that market is on the improve.
So if I was a forest owner with a really good quality block of trees at the moment, is it a good time to harvest? Is it still worth harvesting?
It's a pretty good time to harvest if you have a higher quality block of trees, and we're in a couple in the moment on the coast, and they're very, very good quality. A good chunk of that volume is going to the domestic sawmills on the coast and in Canterbury, to processing plants and post plants and all that sort of thing. So those forest owners are just as good off now as they were before the price dropped away on us for that export component. So it's a shift in focus. So forest owners, again, with higher quality blocks of trees, yes, ample justification to keep going, and prices are good. The one good thing, well, it's not a good thing for the contractors, but the one thing we do ask, if prices are on a bit of a dip as they are at the moment across that export sector, that the contractor cuts the clients a bit of slack and reduces their rates. And I'm very pleased they all do as we do. We just fine tune things and make sure the forest owners are getting a good return.
Yeah, and there's been I follow a lot of these posts about there are groups totally opposed to the conversion of farmland, and even low-grade farmland, to forestry. Do you have some views on that?
Well, Bruce, I've got some very strong views on it, and I expressed some of those in our last newsletter. And gosh, I get most frustrated when I see people almost denigrating radiata pine as a tree. And most people in New Zealand use radiata pine for their house, for their furniture, for their bed frame, and so that tree is to be absolutely revered. That's not to say it should be planted on high quality land, and for the most part I don't believe foresters and farmers are actually doing that. They are. The 1BT grant scheme is a scheme for farmers to plant trees in an integrated way on land, and I'm delighted to see many farmers are small blocks, medium-sized blocks, the 5 to 50 hectare type blocks, and it's all going on land that really isn't that much use for pastoral farming, and that's really what we should be doing. There's many, many hectares of farmland in New Zealand that could be planted in trees, thus improving the value for future generations, integrating wise land use, and making farms more profitable. And that's what the sector that I'm involved in, which is your private forestry sector, smaller scale growers, farmers, investors, that's the space for us. And I'm delighted that they're not only just planting radiata pine, they're planting a whole range of different species. Bruce, there's no negatives. It's trees in the ground, in the right place, earning income for the country and improving the environment. There's no negatives there.
Good for New Zealand. Now, a few months back, we talked about the fact that the market forecast for China actually looked a bit gloomy, but I understand it's bounced considerably.
We've been through a wee bit of a bouncy phase. In June, we had some very, very high prices as we came off COVID, but we've seen a decline through in early May. It was very good. June, July, we've come off the boil in terms of net to forest grower prices at the wharf gate, New Zealand. That's mainly the consequence of drops in China. But China, there was a lot of nervousness there, and people were wondering. So the whole focus, well, a lot of the focus is on daily consumption rates across the eastern seaboard. At this time of the year, we'd expect about 90,000 cubic metres per day, 95,000 compared to last year. This year, we're down, and we were hovering around 60s. People were very nervous that the consumption rates were low, the inventory would build, and that would drive prices down. In fact, what we're finding is the consumption rates have been improving, and up to over 70,000 cubic metres a day now. That's making the market much more positive. There hasn't been as much wood fibre delivered into the market out of Europe and New Zealand as was expected. So the total inventories remain low, and so the market is showing those little signs of recovery. And that's where we would all like to see just a little bit of better improvement, a little bit of better bottom line for the forest growers.
So those big volumes of spruce out of Europe never arrived?
No, there was all sorts of stories about what was arriving. We were told it would be 700, 900,000 cubic metres per month. In fact, last month, 200 odd thousand, so much less than expected, and that's made things more positive. There's many people are saying that spruce is still coming, mind you, but it's very, very dependent on containers. There's some break bulk ships coming out of Europe now. There's 3 on the water, but gosh, their costs are very, very high, and there's no way a break bulk vessel, such as what we call our handy class vessels that carry our logs, there's no way that those rates could compete with New Zealand. Remember, in Germany, you've got to tramp that wood thousands of kilometres across country to get it to a port, so their costs are high, and New Zealand will always be a competitor in that space. And so, we have to be positive. Yes, there's a dearth of fibre potentially in the market, but overall, we're looking not too bad a shape.
The shipping rates remain stubbornly high. I can't work that out. I would have thought they would have softened off.
Everybody's absolutely bamboozled, Bruce, and I'm pleased. I don't organise our own shipping, and I'm pleased I don't, because it's just the biggest game of cat and mouse that people could ever play. And when the market's a little bit tight, the shipping companies would hold off until basically the forest owners need the vessels confirmed, and it's all a game of cat and mouse, and one's never sure who's the mouse and who's the cat. But in any event, prices are stubbornly high, and but we think they're at their peak at the moment, and if anything, there's some weakness ahead, and good things. Of course, the Northern Hemisphere trade is just a little bit subdued, and so there is a reasonable number of vessels opening on New Zealand. That's still not impacting price. They're still holding out for good levels, but we think that there's some weakness ahead.
Obviously, the exchange rate's important as well, but hard to tell where that's going to go.
I work with our foreign exchange managers almost daily, and they're just absolutely bamboozled as to why the Kiwi would be holding up as it is. It's absolutely counterintuitive. They tell me that all but exporters are unhappy with the exchange rate. There's millions of dollars being lost every month in New Zealand due to the current exchange rate. It needs to come down. To what degree the government will be motivated to step in and help to bring that to pass will be interesting. But most are also saying that the full effects of COVID and New Zealand's economy have not been felt yet. There are many redundancies, many job layoffs ahead of us, and that's yet to be revealed in our economy. And most are saying that they still believe the Kiwi's got some weakness ahead. So that will certainly help the export of the log and lumber and all the other wood fibre products that we send overseas.
As we wind this one up, your fundamental message about trees. It's a bit of wisdom, that.
Yes. Well, I get haranguing from all my mates who keep giving me a hard time about my byline, but I reckon the only way forward for country and the planet is to get out there and plant more trees, Bruce. That's the only thing in front of us.
I love it. Now, look, Allan, let's say there's a coaster with a small block or a large block of trees that he wants harvested, or he'd like to talk to you about it. What's the best way to get hold of you?
I reckon your best way is to just, if you remember that lane name, Laurie Forestry, just hit Laurie Forestry on the website. You'll find us. Come in through our admin inquiry page, and we'll snap to it. We enjoy getting inquiries through our webpage, and we do get many. And we'll refer you to the right person in our team to deal with that. It might even be myself, and we'd be delighted to hear from you. So come in through www.laurieforestry.co.nz and by all means, or there, of course, you'll find our contact numbers, etc.
Well, look, there we go, coasters, and I can tell you from personal experience, I've had a block of trees harvested. It went smooth like you wouldn't believe. We ended up with exactly what we were told we were going to end up with. The contractors were fantastic, very, very professional. I never had to think about what I was going to do, what was going to happen next. You've got a wonderful team there, Allan, and anybody looking at getting a block done, Google Laurie Forestry, and talk to Allan or talk to one of his team. Allan, would you be prepared to join us again next month when we see what August brings us?
Thank you so much for those positive comments, Bruce. Really love hearing that, and we'd like keeping people happy. And yes, by all means, really enjoy the work we do on the coast and the coasters, working with them, and we'd be delighted to give you an update next month.
Thanks, Allan, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you, Bruce.